What's up, everyone? Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah Copon. It's January 28, 2022, and this is Lift and Learn episode 72. In this episode, I'll be talking about why form is so important and proper gym etiquette, with the gyms opening next week around me. Just a little refresher there on what to do when you're in the gym so that you can be a respected member. Before that, though, I'll talk a bit about what I've been up to lately, and that might include fitness-related topics, and it might not. If you want to follow me, your host, on Instagram, it's isaiah.copon, and you can also check out my website, isaiahcopon.com. The podcast is on Instagram, at Lift and Learn Podcast, on Twitter, at Lift and Learn Pod, and also on Facebook. You can just search Lift and Learn Podcast. With that being said, let's get into it. Alright, well, I hope that your week went well. Mine was pretty decent until Wednesday night when I got my booster shot of the Pfizer vaccine. So today's podcast, at least the intro portion, will probably be shorter than usual because honestly, I don't feel great since I'm recording this the day after I got the shot. You might be able to hear it in my voice. I've just been feeling weak for the most part and I haven't really done much today. I guess let's start off with a reading update. I ended up finishing 2 books this week, which is still weird for me to say. So as I was approaching the end of Genius Life, I decided to take a break from that. So I started reading Kobe's book, Mamba Mentality, and man, I finished that book in 2 days. Honestly, it's really not that impressive because it's not a long read, and there were actually a lot of pictures throughout the book, which I wasn't expecting. And in this book, Kobe was just basically breaking down his mentality. So he had parts where he'd talk about the tendencies of other players and what he would do to score on them offensively or stop them defensively. He truly was someone who studied the game. I remember this one part where I think he mentioned that he read up on what referees do during the games. He read the referee manual or something like that. And so he basically just learned where the refs would be standing depending on where the ball was on the court. And knowing that, he was able to get away with certain elbows or whatever while defending, or if he had the ball, since there'd be like a blind spot that the refs wouldn't have an eye on. That was pretty interesting. The parts that stood out to me most, I was expecting, because I'm pretty sure I said last week that Kobe's work ethic is what I wanted to know more about. And he went over a few times in this book where he'd shoot after games, he would play through injuries in his hands and fingers and ankles, he would practice before anybody was awake, and he would be home to bring his kids to school, and they wouldn't even know that he'd already taken 1,000 shots that morning and showered. Then I came across this clip of when Kobe dislocated his right shoulder, and that's his shooting arm, and he played the rest of the game with his left hand only. Just nuts. So that ended up being a pretty good read there. And then I ended up reading The Art of Lifting by Greg Nuckols and Omar Isuf. And that's just a pretty short and simple book that just breaks everything down in fitness to just some key points or things to actually focus on, and things you don't really need to worry about. And it was a really simple read, and I think I'm going to go through it again this weekend just to take some notes because it was actually really helpful and really easy to understand. There wasn't really new information there, but it really just talked about the basics, and it was good. It was a good recap, there you go, of certain things that most people should be focusing on, as opposed to just training till failure every set, training till you die, sleep is for the weak, taking all of these supplements, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, the most important aspects in terms of becoming healthier are going to be sleep, diet, exercise, with a subtle nod to how you manage stress in your life. And it is Friday today. I'm going to be releasing some stress of my own, and that's because Pokemon Arceus Legends is now out. I haven't played yet, but I definitely will be playing most of the day on Friday. Man, I've just been waiting for a game like this for so long, an open world Pokemon game, so I hope it lives up to the hype. It did leak early, so people are using ROMs and emulators to play it. Plus, there's already a ton of gameplay footage online already, and even some people have finished the game already. I didn't even look at any of the gameplay or spoilers, so I'm just going to be going into it pretty blindly, but the reviews for the game did actually look pretty good. Most reviews were around 8 or 9 out of 10, except for IGN Italy, which was an outlier that gave it a 5 out of 10. From what I've read, it seems to be a pretty standard Pokemon game, so the story is decent, and the graphics are underwhelming, but it's frickin' Pokemon, and I'm excited to run that for a few hours this week. Besides that, I got nothing else for ya. Gym's open on Monday here, so it's 3 days away. I hope I'll be ready to go for Monday. I know most of my clients are ready to go. My body doesn't feel great right now, but I have a few days to recover from this, so I should be good to go to at least hit a little something. Question 1. Why form is so important? This one is even tough for me to stick to, actually. Usually when I'm about to start up in the gym again, I start off by going lighter, just working on form, and I do that for a while. But then eventually you just get that hunger inside of you and you want to lift more weight and do lower reps. And then all of a sudden you're constantly doing triples or sets of 5. Meanwhile, the control in the exercises starts to slowly fade away. At first you might start off by doing pause reps, sets of 8 reps, for like a week or two, and then the next thing you know it, a month into your programming, you scrap the whole thing because you want to do sets of 3 to 5 reps, because that means you're moving more weight. I've been there, and sure, there's a time and place for that, but sometimes people do just get caught up too much when it comes to strength and how much weight they have on the bar, maybe so you can impress some people at the gym, but in reality, no one really cares how much weight you're lifting. This is why practicing form is so much more important and much more useful when it comes to lifting in the gym. This turns out to be more practice, more reps, that'll ensure that you're doing your exercises with as perfect form as possible. Weight isn't everything. You can grow your muscles by doing a challenging set between 3 to even up to 20 reps. So you don't actually have to go that heavy. Especially if you're focusing on growing the body. They say the hypertrophy rep range is within 8 to 12 reps, but even up to 20 reps, you could still see muscle growth there as long as you're pushing yourself a bit. If you were trying to get good at any skill, the best way to do that would be to practice it more often. It doesn't have to be difficult every single time. You can work on perfecting your form, and that'll give you that muscle memory. You're sending your body this repeated signal. So when the weights do get heavier, you know what perfect form feels like, and then it just becomes about pushing through your range of motion there. I was even listening to Hockey Night in Canada last weekend, which is something I don't regularly do, but there was some little boy actually who called into the show, and he wanted to know how he could develop a better shot, like a wrist shot specifically. And the former player who answered him, his only advice was to just shoot as much as you can. And we can apply that same tactic when it comes to lifting weight. If you want to get better at squats, you have to squat more. It's as simple as that. You could do leg extensions, leg curls, leg presses, all you want, and that might add some size to your legs or contribute to a stronger squat, but nothing is going to get you closer to perfecting a squat than by actually squatting. Nothing is going to grow your legs and give you more bang for your buck than just simply doing a squat. Even rep tempo becomes important when we're talking about form. On bench press, you don't want to be slamming it down onto your chest to try to get that tiny bit of momentum at the bottom just by bouncing it off of your chest. I think a tiny bit of bounce is okay when the weight is pretty heavy, but other than that, you shouldn't be trying to gain as much momentum as possible off of your chest. And I used to do this one, so I'm speaking from experience here. That was around the time I first got into the 225 club. Another reason why form is king, it's because it's going to be so much better for your joints. Working out, that stresses your muscles a lot, but it also takes a toll on your joints as well. The repeated stress you're putting on your joints constantly with all of that load, over time that could actually be pretty dangerous because you might not be ready to lift such heavy weights if your joints are not ready for it. And if your joints aren't ready for it, then it could be something that could give you some pain or it could lead to long-term injury if you're not careful. I remember I used to get this left elbow pain for about a year when I used to bench heavy. This is like 5 years now, 5 years ago now that I think about it. But yeah, I noticed every time I would get to a heavy set, like a set of 2 or 3 reps or something like that on bench press, my left elbow specifically would just start hurting. I took glucosamine actually, and that helped a little bit. But what helped the most is the only way that it got better is when I made the weight lighter, just focused on form, that mind to muscle connection, because my goal more times than not is to actually grow my body, not just push as much weight as possible. So there's going to be less of an injury risk if you prioritize form over weight, especially if you're new. Those incline bench pec tear videos are from people who are just going too heavy, or I'm sure you've seen those scary leg press videos, and those are extreme measures of what could happen, but it's better safe than sorry. And probably the last reason that I'll talk about is how you can actually improve performance with constant practice and a true focus on your form. This is why I'm a huge advocate for doing more compound lifts throughout the week. I used to be that guy who would bench or squat only one day a week, and that got me some progress, but not as much as doing those movements more throughout the week. I've said this before, but if you're only benching or squatting or deadlifting once a week, that's 50 sessions per year. That's 50 times you're doing that movement per year. That's not bad. Now, if you're doing those movements twice or even 3 times a week, that's over 100 or maybe even 150 sessions and times you're practicing those movements, which will be super beneficial in terms of how your form will improve over time. And like I said, I definitely made progress doing compound movements once a week, and so did my clients, but it wasn't until I had them practice these movements more, that's when I saw even more progress. Before, I'd see my clients maybe twice a week, so we would do an upper-lower split. So upper one day, lower one day. Again, they'd be benching or squatting once a week, made progress, but more frequency means even more progress, as long as the intensity is adjusted accordingly. Nowadays, I realize that full body workouts would be best for someone who's going to work out 2 or 3 days a week. That practice is crucial when it comes to having that form down pat. That way, you don't have to think about your form during your lifts, you can just lift. When you're on bench, you don't have to constantly think of, oh, I gotta keep my shoulders retracted. Okay, and now the bar path needs to be going this way. Or when you're squatting, oh, my knees cave in sometimes, so I have to focus on keeping them out. After all of this practice, it just becomes ingrained in you. You're practicing as perfect form as you can handle. So now when I see my clients twice or even 3 times a week, we're working on those compound movements all the time. Sometimes I have them squatting every single time, and that's fine as long as the intensity isn't too high or to the point where it starts to interfere with their recovery time. And I think the best part about all of this is that you can certainly get stronger by just working on your form. Even if being stronger isn't your goal, that just becomes a good side effect that comes with practicing good form and putting that above everything else. The more you practice, the better you'll be at performing said movement, the stronger you'll be over time. So if you're someone who's constantly thinking about adding weight to lifts every week, it could be time to back off a little bit, step away from that for a second, and make sure that your form is solid over everything else. Because if you're going to go heavy and your form isn't perfect, it could spell disaster in the future in the form of aching pains or some kind of other injury. Question 2. What does proper gym etiquette look like? So since the gyms are opening up around me in a few days, I figured I'd just go over some of the things in the gym that you should do or avoid doing. Now, this could be useful for you if you've been a long-time member at the gym, or if it's your first time going, trying to hammer out those New Year's resolutions a bit later than expected. So first off, I think it's kind of important that you don't go into the gym smelling really bad. I understand smelling a bit bad, fine, you're working out, I get it, you're sweating, so it's not really your fault. But to purposely not put on deodorant or something is crazy to me. To each their own, honestly, but there are times where I smell bad and I can't even focus. And if you can smell yourself, others can probably smell you twice as much. So after you get in there, hopefully smelling decent, when it comes to proper gym etiquette, it only makes sense to take it easy on the machines or whatever it is you're using. I don't know why people seem like they're trying to break things on purpose, like throwing down 135 on deadlifts, sounding like you're building a railroad or something. It makes no sense to me. Letting go of deadlifts that are steel weight plates onto the floor is just annoying to other members of the gym. I mean, I understand if you have to make some amount of noise deadlifting over 300 pounds, but I mean, not when it's just a plate on the bar. Or another one I usually see is something like the leg press, where the safeties are a bit high, so when you're bringing down the weight, you slam all the weight onto the safeties, then use a little bit of that bounce as momentum for the next rep. Again, focus on form instead of just pure rage sometimes would be helpful. Something else I used to do before, actually, something I've outgrown for the most part, is throwing the dumbbells to the floor. I do still do this on a rare occasion when I've really pushed myself, but I used to be that guy who would just toss them from hip height no matter what the weight was, and the dumbbell would bounce and roll around, do a flip, and then I'd have to chase it down before it rolls into someone's ankle. Just be aware that you're not the only one in the gym. Be aware of your surroundings, and it's not worth it to injure someone else because you couldn't properly put down some dumbbells. On a related topic, another thing to do, put back your damn dumbbells. Put it back where it came from at the least. Put it in the right spot would be even better. This is super annoying when there's a bunch of dumbbells on the floor everywhere, then you don't know if they're in use or not. So just put them back to the rack or on the rack so people know that you're done with them. It's simple, really. And the next point is to clean up after yourself. What does that mean? Well, first off, wipe down the machines that you use. I do notice that there are more people in the gym over the past 2 years or so who wipe down equipment that they were using, but it's still not even close to 100% or even 50% of the gym members at this point. So if you are going to head to the gym, just try to remember to wipe down your machines. Please, even before COVID, this is something that members should have been doing before. If you're new to the gym, don't spend too much time hogging up equipment or dumbbells or any kind of weights. I remember this one time, oh my god, I was working out at this LA Fitness in Mississauga. This is years ago with my buddy. This is like maybe 2 or 3 years into lifting for me at this point. And me and my buddy wanted to go do bench press. And there were 3 benches, I believe, in this gym. And the first 2 guys, we asked them and they said they had a few sets left or whatever. And then we asked this 3rd guy how many more sets he had with the bench. I swear to you, this guy looks at the time and he says, "Oh, I'll be using the bench for the next 45 minutes. Oh my god. Me and my buddy just looked at each other confused and laughed about it later. I'm sure he still remembers this. So yeah, just try to stick to a few sets of whatever it is. If you're in the dumbbell area and need the bench for a few different exercises, then that's alright, but I mean, just don't hog up an area for 45 minutes, please. Alright, a few more quick ones before I finish up this week's episode. Give people their space in the gym. I think this is something that people do more often now because of social distancing that's just infamous now at this point. On a related note, if someone is right in front of the mirror paying attention to their form, maybe on shoulder presses or something, please just don't get in the way. That irks me sometimes. Alright, 2 more points, so just another minute here, and if you're someone who enjoys doing those group classes, please show up on time. I've talked with some group exercise instructors and they said that it's just an annoying thing to have happen. It throws off the rhythm and flow of the class if they have a member show up late, and they kind of have to play catch up there with that new member. Last but not least, when it comes to music, please put some headphones on. Don't just be blasting your music from your phone, or some people even bring their own Bluetooth speakers. Like, what? Some people aren't gonna like that. If you're gonna play music in the gym, please have some consideration for others, like Why are some people blasting their music like it's the music that everyone else wants to hear? Doesn't make sense. I usually only notice this from the younger members at the gym, but still, just put some damn headphones on. So there you have it. There's some tips if you're looking to become a respected member in the gym. Wipe down your machines, put the dumbbells away. I think those are the most important ones to remember. Nothing is worse than showing up to a bench and seeing someone's nasty shirt or back sweat outline or the butt prints on the seat or even footprints from shoes on benches. So please be considerate of others in there. And I hope 2022 brings you a bunch of gains and better health. And that concludes episode 72 of the podcast. Thank you for listening. If you really enjoyed the episode or my podcast as a whole, then please leave a review and comment on iTunes or whatever your choice of podcast platform is. Also, if you haven't already, you should hit that subscribe button because I'll be releasing episodes every Friday. If you want to follow me, your host, I'm Isaiah.Copon on Instagram, and you can also check out my website, isaiahcopon.com. If you want to follow the podcast, you can check out @LiftAndLearnPodcast on Instagram, and there's also a Facebook page if you just search Lift and Learn Podcast.